He said my passion was embarrassing, and I almost believed him. I've always written stories, not for fame, not for money, just to quiet the chaos in my head. Late nights, headphones on, the world fading into a hum as I typed away at my tiny desk. My fan fiction wasn't anything wild, mostly emotional stories about flawed people trying to love each other right. But it was mine, my little universe. When I started dating Ethan, I didn't tell him about it. He was confident, social, the kind of guy who always had a joke ready. I was quieter, observant, a little shy, maybe too much in my own head. But he liked that about me, or so he said. We met in college. He studied business, I studied literature. He teased me once for analyzing metaphors like it's a survival skill, and I laughed it off. Back then it was charming, until it wasn't. It started the night he came over unannounced. I was in my pajamas, laptop open, fingers mid-sentence when he knocked on the door. "Hey, surprise visit," he grinned, holding takeout. "You didn't text back, thought you fell asleep." I was just... "Writing?" I said, closing my laptop a little too quickly. "Writing what?" "Just stories. For fun," he smirked. "You mean that fan fiction thing you mentioned once?" I froze. I had told him, once casually when we were still in that phase where you share random facts over coffee. I didn't think he'd remember. He walked over before I could say anything and tapped the edge of my laptop. "Can I see?" "It's private," I said softly. Ethan laughed, that low, teasing kind of laugh that sounds playful but stings. Oh, come on, what could be so secret? "You writing about me?" He tried to grab the laptop. I held it close. "Ethan, I'm serious, please." He raised his hands. Okay, chill. Didn't know it was such a big deal. But something changed after that, a few days later. He brought it up again, this time in front of our friends. We were at a small get-together. Music low, drinks flowing, everyone trading college horror stories. And then Ethan, with that same half-smile, said, "You guys know Lena writes fan fiction, like romantic fan fiction." The table laughed. I tried to smile along, but my throat closed up. "What's it about?" someone asked. Ethan shrugged. "No idea, she won't let me read it." "Maybe she's secretly famous online or something." I forced a laugh. "It's just a hobby," but Ethan wasn't done. "Maybe she's writing about her ideal guy," he said, nudging me with his elbow. "Some mysterious brooding character who actually listens." Everyone laughed again, except me. That night, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was the way he said it. Like my passion was a punchline. He texted me, "Hey, sorry if I went too far. It was just a joke. You know I love that creative brain of yours." I stared at the message for a long time, then I replied, "Yeah, sure. Good night." But something inside me cracked, not all at once, but in a quiet, spreading way. A week later, I found out he had actually read one of my stories. I logged into my blog, my private, anonymous space, and saw a new comment under my latest post. "The way this girl writes, you'd think she's never had a real relationship, lol. No username. Just guessed." My heart dropped. I knew that phrasing. I knew that tone. It was him. That night, I confronted him. "Did you read my story?" I asked. He looked up from his phone. "What story?" "Don't play dumb, Ethan," he grinned. "Okay, fine, I might have skimmed it." I was curious. "You left your blog link open on your browser. You had no right—" "Relax," he interrupted. "It's not like I posted it anywhere. I just don't get why you take it so seriously. It's fanfiction, Lena. It's mine." He rolled his eyes. "You're overreacting. You act like I broke into your diary or something." My hands were shaking, because that's exactly what it felt like. Later that night, I sat on my bed staring at the blinking cursor on my laptop screen. I tried to write, but every word felt tainted, like he'd invaded the one place I still belonged to myself. Maya, my best friend, called me. Her voice was calm but sharp as ever. "Lena, listen to me. When someone mocks what you love, they're not teasing. They're testing how small you're willing to make yourself." I didn't answer, because she was right, and deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. He said he was just joking, but the way people laughed, it didn't sound like a joke. I tried to move on after that night. I told myself I was being too sensitive, that Ethan didn't mean harm, that maybe I shouldn't hide my writing like it was something shameful. But shame doesn't come from nowhere. Someone has to put it there. And Ethan, he planted it, watered it, and watched it grow. A few weeks passed, we were still together, at least on the surface, but something had shifted. He no longer asked about my day or my classes. Instead, he'd drop little comments like, "Did you write another love scene today? What's your fan club up to? You should send that to Netflix. Maybe they'll hire you for background dialogue." Always with that smile. That tone that says I'm just kidding while his eyes say I'm not. At first, I tried to ignore it, but words have a way of echoing, especially when they come from someone you love. One Friday, his friends invited us to a game night. I didn't want to go. I'd been editing a new chapter and just wanted to stay home. But Ethan insisted. "Come on. Lena, you're always hiding behind your laptop. Live a little." So I went. Halfway through the night, someone brought up a trivia question about literature, and one of his friends, Connor, turned to me and said, "Lena should know this. She's like our resident romance author." Ethan laughed before I could even respond. "Oh yeah, she's got a fanfiction empire online. You should read her stuff. It's basically 50 Shades, but with better grammar." The room exploded in laughter. Even Connor choked on his drink. I froze. My chest burned. Not with anger, but humiliation so raw it made my throat ache. "Ethan," I said quietly, "that's not funny." He put an arm around me. "Babe, relax. It's a compliment." But it wasn't, because I saw the way they looked at me after that. Amused, condescending, like I was some kind of joke wrapped in a love story. I went home early that night. Ethan didn't follow. The next morning, I opened my blog. There it was again, another guest comment. "You should write about the guy who laughs at you. Maybe then you'll learn what real heartbreak sounds like." I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. It had to be him. So I stopped writing. Just like that. No announcement. No goodbye. I deleted drafts, shut down notifications, and told myself it didn't matter. But it did. Because for the first time, silence felt like defeat. A few days later, Ethan noticed. "You haven't been writing lately," he said casually. Scrolling through his phone, I stopped. "Why?" I looked at him. "Because it's not fun anymore," he smirked. "Come on, don't tell me you're still upset about that. Babe, people joke about worse things every day." "You don't get it," I said, my voice trembling. "That blog was the one place where I could just be myself. And you made it feel dirty," he sighed. "You're overreacting again. You always take things too seriously." "I take myself seriously," I said. He laughed, a sharp sound that sliced through the room. Maybe that's the problem. The next weekend was his birthday. I went, out of habit more than love, maybe. His friends were there, the same crowd that had laughed before. There was music, laughter, and somewhere in the background, I felt like a ghost, watching a version of myself I no longer recognized. And then Ethan stood up, a beer in his hand, and said, "All right, everyone. I've got something hilarious to show you." He connected his phone to the TV. A browser window popped open. My blog. He'd taken screenshots of my stories, my comments, even the usernames of people who'd left kind messages. He began to read one of my posts aloud, exaggerating the lines, twisting them into something obscene. His eyes burned like wildfire as she whispered his name. "Oh, wow. Lena didn't know you wrote poetry, too." The room burst into laughter again. Someone shouted, "Yo, this is actually kinda good." Another said, "Is this about Ethan?" I just stood there, frozen, humiliated, exposed. Every sentence he read felt like a knife. Those words weren't just words. They were pieces of me. And now they were entertainment. "Stop," I said, barely audible. He didn't. "Ethan, stop," I yelled. The laughter died. He looked at me, half amused, half defensive. "What? It's just a story." "No," I said, tears stinging my eyes. "It's my voice. And you just turned it into a joke." I left, didn't say goodbye. Didn't look back. Outside, the night was cold, but I didn't feel it. My heart was too loud, my chest too hollow. I walked until my feet ached and my phone buzzed. It was Maya. I saw what happened. Someone posted a clip on their story. I stopped walking. My stomach dropped. Lena, she continued, this isn't just cruel. It's abuse. That night, I stayed at Maya's place. She made me tea and sat next to me while I scrolled through messages I didn't want to see. Apologies, excuses. Ethan saying, "You're blowing this out of proportion. It was supposed to be funny. You know I love you, but love doesn't humiliate you in front of an audience. Love doesn't make you doubt the worth of your own voice." And as I lay there in the quiet glow of Maya's living room, I realized something painful but freeing. Ethan didn't destroy my writing. He just showed me who it was never meant for. Sometimes you don't recognize cruelty until it wears the face you love. The next morning, Ethan showed up at my door. No text, no call. Just the sound of his knuckles hitting the wood. Over and over again, "Lena, please. Let me explain." His voice was shaky, but I didn't move. I stood there behind the door, my hands trembling. I could still hear the echoes from last night. The laughter, the humiliation, the moment my words stopped belonging to me. He knocked again. "Babe, come on." It wasn't that serious, and that was it. That sentence, "it wasn't that serious," was the nail in the coffin. I opened the door. He looked different, tired, maybe even scared, but still him. Still Ethan, the man I thought loved me. "What do you want?" I asked. He took a breath. I went too far. I didn't mean to hurt you. Everyone was laughing and I thought it was funny. You thought it was funny to strip me down in front of a room full of people. "I didn't strip you down," he said quickly. "You're overreacting." That word again, overreacting. It's the word people use when they don't want to take responsibility, when they want to gaslight you into shrinking. I looked him straight in the eye. "You humiliated me, Ethan. That blog was mine. My stories, my voice. You took something sacred and turned it into a party trick." He rubbed his face, sighing. "God, Lena, you make it sound so dramatic. It's just fan fiction." The way he said it, just fan fiction, like it was a stain, a childish thing to be ashamed of. He didn't understand that it was never about the stories. It was about respect. "You know what's crazy?" I said quietly. "I started writing because I wanted to feel seen, heard. It gave me something when I had nothing. But you made me feel small for the one thing that's ever made me proud." He frowned. "I wasn't trying to make you small. I was, I don't know, teasing. I scoffed. "Teasing is when you make someone laugh. What you did was cruel." Silence, and then he said it. The truth I didn't know I'd been waiting for. "You spend so much time in your fake worlds. Lena, sometimes I wonder if you even live in the real one anymore." I blinked. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're always writing about these perfect guys who understand every thought in your head. And He hesitated, his jaw tightening. "I can't compete with that." So there it was, not humor, not ignorance, jealousy. He wasn't mocking my writing because he hated it. He mocked it because it reminded him of everything he wasn't. Sensitive, curious, kind. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not sadness. Just clarity. "You know what's funny?" I said. "All those stories I wrote, all those characters, not one of them would ever do what you did to me." He looked up, eyes wide. "I used to think fan fiction was my escape," I continued. "But maybe it was my mirror. Because every hero I wrote loved a woman who spoke her truth, and every villain tried to silence her." He swallowed hard. "You're calling me a villain now?" "I'm saying," I said slowly, "you wrote yourself into the wrong story." He laughed nervously, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Come on, Lena, don't do this. We can move past it." "No, Ethan, you can move past it. You already have. You did it the moment I cried and you still thought it was a joke." He stepped closer, voice softening. "I love you. And I realized, and for the first time, that love isn't always enough. Not when it's built on humiliation. Not when it asks you to be smaller just to fit inside it." I stepped back. "Then love me from a distance," he froze. "You're serious?" "I was serious the first time you mocked me. The second. The 10th. You just didn't hear it. I closed the door. This time, for good." He stood there for a while. I could hear his footsteps fading down the hall. And when they finally disappeared, I sat on the floor and cried. Not because I lost him, but because I finally stopped losing myself. That night, I reopened my blog. The cursor blinked at me. Patient and forgiving. I typed the first words I'd written in weeks. He laughed at her dreams until she built a world where his laughter couldn't reach. I didn't post it right away. I just sat there, staring at the screen, letting the silence fill the spaces where his voice used to echo, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel embarrassed, I felt powerful. The next morning, I posted it under my pen name as always. Within hours, the comments started flooding in. This hit too close, so I thank you for saying what I couldn't. We see you, 3 words, we see you. I smiled. Because that's all I ever wanted, to be seen for who I am, not what someone else finds convenient to mock. Weeks later, I heard Ethan had moved to another city. Someone told me he was working on himself. Maybe he was. Maybe he wasn't. I didn't care because I'd already written my ending. And this time, I wasn't the girl being laughed at. I was the author. And the story belonged to me again. He called it fanfiction. I called it freedom.